The crash in the ice storm. The sky was full of snow and silence. Captain Rayner stood at the front window of the transport ship Starlight Echo. His hands were tight on the controls. Cold sweat ran down his back. A strange energy pulse had hit them. It came out of nowhere. No warning, no signal. And now the ship was falling. Below them, the planet was white and frozen. Nothing but ice storms, cracked mountains, and freezing wind that could cut through steel. Braced for impact, Rayner shouted. The crew strapped in fast. Lights blinked. Alarms screamed. Metal groaned like a dying beast. And then, they hit. The ship crashed hard. The nose dug deep into the ice. Wings broke. Engines exploded in fire and smoke. Then, silence. Rayner opened his eyes. Blood ran down his face. Is everyone alive? He called out. A few voices answered. Some moaned. Others coughed. 7 crew members were still breathing. 3 were not. Outside, the storm howled. They set up inside the broken wreckage, using what little power they had. Temperatures were dropping fast, -60 degrees and falling. They had only one heater, no working engine, no signal, no rescue. We'll freeze out here, said Lieutenant Mara, wrapping her arms tight. Rayner looked at the frozen windows. We're not dying here, he said. We find shelter. We find a way off. But then, someone called from outside. Captain, there's something buried in the snow. 2 crew members pulled it out. It was a small escape pod. Burned, frost-covered. Inside was something unexpected. A girl. Her skin was ice blue. Her hair was long and white like snow. Her body was shaking. She was still alive, but barely. She didn't look human. We can't bring her in, one crew member said. She's an alien. What if she's dangerous? She's a child, Rayner said. She needs help. She's not our problem. She is now. Rayner carried her inside himself. The girl's skin was like frozen metal. Her lips were blue. She couldn't speak. She couldn't open her eyes. Her fingers were stiff like glass. We need to warm her up, the doctor said. We don't have enough blankets, Mara warned. Rayner didn't wait. He wrapped his own coat around her, then sat beside her, sharing body heat. She dies, he said, if we don't give her warmth. We do it together. One by one, the crew sat closer. They made a circle around her, sharing what little heat they had. Hours passed. The storm outside grew worse. Then suddenly, her fingers moved. Her eyes opened, silver and shining. She sat up fast, gasping. She looked around the room, confused, scared. Then she pointed at the door and spoke just one word in a soft, broken voice. Run. Everyone froze. What did she say? Someone asked. Rayner looked at her. Run from what? The girl closed her eyes and drew something in the frost on the floor. A circle, a black sun, and a shape with sharp teeth. Mara backed away. What does that mean? The girl whispered again. They're already here. Outside the ship, the wind changed. It no longer sounded like a storm. It sounded like breathing. The girl lay on the floor, shivering. Her silver eyes were open, but she wasn't fully awake. Her lips moved, whispering words no one could understand. Captain Rayner sat beside her, confused and alert. She said, "Run," Mara repeated. Run from what? No one had an answer. The wind outside howled louder, slamming against the metal wreckage. It sounded like claws scraping over the walls. The girl suddenly gasped, then sat up straight. Her whole body shook, but her eyes were sharp now, burning silver fire. Rayner raised his hands calmly. You're safe. No one here will hurt you. She looked at him, but didn't answer. Instead, she crawled toward a patch of frost on the floor and began to draw again. Everyone leaned in. First, she made a jagged mountain. then a symbol like a frozen sun, then tall creatures with long arms and wide mouths full of teeth. "They look like hunters," said one of the crew. The girl pointed to the biggest one and whispered a single word in broken English. "Frostborn." Rayner's face turned serious. "You know them?" he asked. The girl slowly nodded. "Are they here?" She shook her head. Then she pointed outside and made a circle in the snow. "They're coming," she said. The crew looked at each other in silence. The heater in the corner buzzed weakly. The lights flickered. Rayner took a breath. "We can't trust the storm anymore." "What do you mean?" Mara asked. "I mean something's out there, watching, waiting." Suddenly, the girl screamed. She grabbed Rayner's arm and pulled him toward the wall. Her other hand drew a fast spiral, then tapped the metal with her finger. A low thump echoed from the other side of the wall. Once, then again. Something was moving, just beyond the hull. Rayner motioned to the others. "Turn off the heater." "But it's our only warmth," one shouted. "They're tracking heat," Rayner said. "We stay warm, we die." They shut off the heater. The room went quiet, then cold. The girl curled up in the corner, her body glowing faintly with pale blue light. She hugged herself tightly, but her eyes were watching the wall. Then she whispered something again. "They can smell your heart." The crew spent the next hours in silence. They wrapped themselves in scraps of cloth and metal insulation. Breath turned to ice in the air. The girl stayed still, watching, listening. By morning, one crew member was gone. Private Keller had been on night watch near the broken exit hatch. Now there was only blood in the snow, and a trail of claw marks leading away into the storm. Mara fell to her knees. He was just right there. Rayner walked out with two others, guns ready. They didn't go far. They found Keller's frozen body near a cliff, his eyes wide open, full of fear. One of his boots was melted from extreme heat. "He tried to run," Rayner said quietly. "They burned him alive." Back at the ship, the girl stared at them with sadness in her eyes. "I told you," she said. Her voice was a little clearer now. Rayner knelt beside her. "You've seen them before." She nodded. "They took my people. I ran. I hid in the snow." Rayner asked, "How do we stop them?" The girl hesitated. Then she said something no one expected. "You can't." Rayner stood slowly. "There has to be a way." The girl looked up at him. Her eyes were full of tears, but also something else. "Hope. There is one thing," she whispered. "They hate fire." "Fire." She nodded. "Real fire. But not just flames." She pointed at Rayner's chest. "This, human fire. Inside." Rayner didn't understand yet. But he would. Very soon. Outside, in the white storm, dark shadows moved. The Frostborn had arrived. And they were hungry. The sky turned darker, not from clouds, but from something moving above them. Captain Rayner stood at the edge of the broken doorway, staring into the snowstorm. The wind had changed. It didn't howl like before. Now, it whispered. Inside the wrecked ship, the crew was quiet, wrapped in metal blankets, holding old weapons. The heater was off, the lights dimmed to save power. But nothing felt safe. Private Lynn kept his eyes on the door. "They're out there," he said. "I can feel it." Rayner didn't answer. He already knew. The alien girl sat in the center of the room, knees to her chest. Her eyes were closed, lips whispering something in her own language. Mara leaned in. "Is she praying?" Rayner nodded. "No, she's warning them." Then something scratched the outside wall. A long, slow scrape. Metal on ice. Everyone froze. The girl opened her eyes. "One is here." Suddenly, bang. A blast of wind slammed the outer hatch open. Snow poured in. A long, tall shadow stepped through the fog. 7 feet tall. skin like cracked ice, eyes glowing faint blue. Its arms were long, ending in sharp claws. It didn't walk. It glided like mist with bones. Raynor lifted his rifle. "Get behind me." But the Frostborn didn't attack. Not yet. It looked past Raynor, straight at the girl. She stood slowly, trembling. Then, to everyone's shock, she stepped forward. The Frostborn tilted its head. It let out a strange growl, a cold, echoing sound. The girl spoke softly in its language. One word. The Frostborn paused, then bowed, and walked back into the storm. The crew stared in silence. "What just happened?" Mara whispered. The girl fell to her knees, weak. "I told it I was alive," she said. "I told it to wait." Raynor knelt beside her. "You're one of them, aren't you?" She didn't answer at first. Then she nodded. "I was born Frostborn, but I left." The crew stepped back. Some raised their weapons. Raynor raised a hand. "Wait, she saved us." One crewman shouted, "She's why they're here." "No," Raynor said. "They're here for us, because we burn hotter." He looked at her. "But you stayed with us." "Why?" Her eyes glistened. "Because humans carry something the Frostborn don't. Warmth." The room fell silent. Outside, the storm screamed again. But now, they knew what they were facing. That night, Private Lynn stood guard near the hatch. It was his turn, but morning never came for him. They found only his boots in the snow, his body gone, and written in blood on the ice beside the wreckage. A Frostborn symbol, a message. One by one, Raynor called the crew together. "We can't wait to die. We fight, or we freeze." "But how do you fight them?" Mara asked. Raynor looked at the alien girl. She answered, voice soft and sad. "You use the one thing they fear, human fire." The crew didn't understand yet, but soon they would learn that the fire she spoke of wasn't just flame. It was sacrifice. It was hope. It was the willingness to give warmth to another, even when you're freezing yourself. And the Frostborn had no idea what humans were willing to do for each other. The wreckage was colder than ever. Snow leaked through every crack. Frost formed on the ceiling. The crew sat close together, their breath thick in the freezing air. They had lost 2 more people. Only 5 remained. Captain Raynor, Lieutenant Mara, Engineer Pike, Medic Nara, and the alien girl. She hadn't spoken all night. She sat alone near the broken control panel, hands folded in her lap, eyes closed. Raynor watched her. Mara leaned in and whispered, "She's hiding something. I can feel it." Raynor nodded. "I know. But she's also the only reason we're still breathing." Suddenly, crashing sounds outside. Raynor grabbed his weapon, but it wasn't the Frostborn. It was Nara. She stumbled in through the broken doorway, holding something. Someone. The youngest crew member, Pike, was in her arms, barely breathing. His skin pale, lips blue, ice in his hair. "I found him outside," Nara cried. "He went to check the solar flare panel. He didn't come back." Pike was dying. The medic checked him. His body's shutting down. No blood flow. He won't last the hour. "No," Raynor snapped. "There has to be something. Anything." Everyone turned to the alien girl. She walked over slowly, calm, quiet. She knelt beside Pike and placed her hands on his chest. Then she looked at Raynor. "I can save him." Mara stepped forward. "How? What are you going to do?" The girl looked up. Her eyes shimmered. "Give him my warmth." No one spoke. Raynor asked, "Will it hurt you?" She nodded. "It could kill me. Then we'll find another way." But she shook her head. "No, I was born to survive cold, but he was born to survive with others." She took Pike's hand. He would have died alone, but not now. She leaned forward. her forehead touching his. A soft glow spread from her body to his. Blue light covered his chest, arms, face. Steam rose from his mouth. He gasped. He breathed. The girl fell backward, weak, shivering. Her skin, once blue and glowing, was now pale and cracked. Raynor caught her before she hit the floor. She looked at him, smiling faintly. Now he'll live. And then she passed out. They wrapped her in every blanket they had. They took turns holding her close, giving her the warmth she had given Pike. Hours passed. She didn't wake. Finally, as the last flare light faded in the corner, her eyes fluttered open. Raynor sat beside her. "You saved him," he said. She nodded weakly. "I had to." "But why?" Mara asked. "Why would you give up your life for us?" The girl stared into the dim lights above. "Because the Frostborn call warmth weakness. But I remember, a human touched my hand once. Years ago. Just a moment. But it burned brighter than my whole world. That moment never left me." Raynor looked at her closely. "You were always different. I tried to forget," she whispered. "But your warmth, it stayed." She sat up slowly. Her voice turned cold now. "The Frostborn are not done. They will return. All of them. Not just hunters. The whole pack." Mara stepped forward. "Then we fight." Raynor added, "But we need a plan." The girl stood on shaking legs. "You won't win with guns. Or fire." She touched her heart. "You'll win with this. The one thing they've never had. And never will." Everyone watched her in silence. Even in weakness, she stood strong. No longer an outsider. No longer one of them. Now, she was one of us. The storm was endless. Days had passed since Pike was saved. But now the crew was weaker, colder, and running out of hope. The alien girl, Saren, as she finally told them, had not fully recovered. Her skin was cracked with frost. Her strength was fading. Captain Raynor stood at the window, staring at the white nothing outside. "We won't last another 2 nights," Mara said quietly. "No fuel, no fire. And those things, still out there." Inside the wreck, Pike lay beside the broken heater. He coughed weakly, his breath thin. His body was healing, but the cold was fighting to take him again. Saren crawled beside him and placed her hand on his chest. "No," Raynor said. "You already gave him your strength." Saren looked at Pike's face. Tears touched her glowing eyes. "Then I'll give him the rest." Raynor knelt beside her. "If you do this, you'll die." Saren looked up. "He is still young. He still laughs. I want to save something that still laughs." She smiled faintly, then reached into her coat. From her pocket, she pulled a glowing shard of crystal, pale blue, humming softly. "This is part of my heart," she whispered. "It was once warm. It still remembers." She pressed it to Pike's chest. Warmth exploded from the crystal. A wave of heat spread through the wreckage. Steam rose from the frozen walls. Ice cracked. Everyone stared in awe. Pike took a deep breath and opened his eyes. Alive. Fully alive. Saren collapsed. The glow in her veins dimmed. Her skin turned to snow-white ash. Raynor caught her just in time. "No, don't do this." She smiled at him, barely breathing. "Your warmth is stronger than mine. Let it burn. Let it spread." That night, the storm began to die. Not because of the weather. Because something was changing. Outside, in the deep snow, the Frostborn paused. They felt it. Human warmth. Stronger than before. Brighter than any fire. They hissed. They turned away. For now. Raynor and the others lit small fires using scavenged parts. Pike, now stronger, helped bring in old fuel rods from the wreckage. The crew worked together, hands moving fast. Saren lay beside the heater, her chest rising slowly. Pike sat beside her, holding her hand. "You gave me my life," he whispered. "I'll never forget." Later, Mara said, "She's more human than most humans I know." Rayner nodded. "She's not just part of us now." He looked at her with respect and awe. "She's why we're still us." In the dark cold outside, the Frostborn waited. But something had changed. Humans had done the one thing no Frostborn could understand. They gave warmth to someone else, even when it hurt. The storm had stopped. For the first time in weeks, the wind was quiet. But no one inside the wrecked ship felt safe. Captain Rayner stood near the door, watching the snow drift softly outside. "They're waiting," he said, "just beyond the hills. Watching." Mara loaded the last working pulse rifle. Then let them watch. Pike, now recovered, lit a small torch. "They'll come, but we'll burn brighter this time." Saren lay on a makeshift bed, weak but alive. She watched them quietly, her eyes glowing faintly. "You can't outrun them," she whispered, "but you can make them afraid." Rayner turned to her. "Teach us." That day, Saren told them what the Frostborn feared. Not weapons, not noise, but heat. Not just fire, living heat, emotional heat, human connection. Touch, trust. "They can't survive it," she said, "because they don't feel it. They don't even understand it." The crew made a plan. They set heat traps using the last of their power cores, hiding them inside wreckage chunks, heating them until they glowed. They spread body heat sensors in fake tents. They created false heartbeats using broken machines. They lured the Frostborn in with human warmth. Night fell. The Frostborn came. One by one, they stepped out of the snow, tall, silent, glowing with frost and hate. Their breath hissed like steam. Their claws scraped the metal. They smelled warmth, but couldn't see anyone. The traps activated. Boom. The first Frostborn screamed as heat exploded in its face. Its icy skin cracked. It turned to mist and vanished into the snow. Then the others attacked. Mara and Pike stood shoulder to shoulder, guarding the entrance. They threw flares and firebombs, anything that burned. Rayner climbed to the roof with a power torch, waving it like a sword. "They hate fire," he shouted, "so give it to them." Saren lay inside, whispering soft words, guiding them. She had lived among the Frostborn once. Now she helped to destroy them. She wasn't Frostborn anymore. She was human, in the only way that mattered. The battle raged through the night. Frostborn screamed. The fire danced. Pike was nearly caught, until Mara pulled him out, burning the ground around them. Rayner fought until his torch died, then used his own body heat to draw one into a trap. By morning, the snow was black with ash. The Frostborn had followed. Rayner fell to his knees, exhausted. Mara sat beside him, her face smudged with soot. Pike laughed. They were alive. Inside, Saren opened her eyes. "You did it," she said softly. Rayner took her hand. "No, you did," she smiled. "Your warmth was always stronger than my fear." Later, as the sun rose for the first time, the crew stood together in the snow. 5 humans, 1 alien girl. But in that moment, they were the same. Survivors. Family. In the sky above them, a signal lit up. A rescue beacon. Someone had heard them. Help was coming. But Rayner looked back at the battlefield. The burned snow. The broken weapons. And he whispered, "We didn't win because we were strong. We won because we refused to let each other freeze." The sky was clear. For the first time in weeks, the sun touched the frozen planet. Its light reflected off the ice like glass. The storm was gone. The Frostborn had retreated. But the wrecked ship still stood, half buried in snow. Inside, 5 survivors sat together, silent, breathing, alive. Captain Rayner stood outside, his coat blowing in the cold wind. His eyes stared at the horizon. He didn't smile. He didn't cry. He simply watched the rising sun. Behind him, Saren walked slowly, weak but standing. She stood beside him, her thin hand holding his sleeve. "They'll come back," she whispered. Raynor nodded. "Yes." Mara stepped out behind them. "Then what? Do we keep running? Fighting? Hiding?" Raynor looked down at the snow. "No, we tell the galaxy what happened here." A few hours later, the rescue ship arrived. Sleek, silver, warm, the survivors stepped aboard. They were given food, blankets, light, but none of that warmth compared to what they had given each other out there in the cold. Inside the medbay, a young officer scanned Saren. "You're not on any known alien list," she said. Saren looked away. "I don't belong anywhere." Raynor stepped in. "She belongs with us." The officer hesitated. "You're sure?" Raynor didn't blink. "She saved all of us, with nothing but her heart." News spread, not just about the Frostborn, but about the humans who fought them off. The humans who survived not with weapons, but by refusing to stop caring. One reporter asked Pike later, "What was your secret out there?" He smiled and held up his hand. Wrapped around his wrist was a thin band of glowing blue crystal, the piece of Saren's heart that saved his life. He said, "We didn't have fire, so we became fire." Saren stayed with the crew. She was offered a home, a room, a name, but she already had one. Saren. It meant light in the storm in her forgotten language. Years later, Captain Raynor would return to that frozen world, not to fight, but to build something. A small tower, a flame always burning at the top. He called it the beacon of warmth. Not a weapon, not a warning, just a reminder that when the cold comes, when monsters rise, humanity's greatest weapon is the one they always carry inside. The Frostborn still exist, but now they whisper stories in the dark, of a world where the snow did not win, of a girl who walked away from their kind, and of humans who lit fires in each other's hearts so bright that even the ice had to melt. The end